All right. So we are April 13th, 4 o'clock, meeting of the Civil Service Commission. Civil Service Commissioner Chair Brian McManus, roll call for all attendees.
Commissioner Ray Mitchell,
Civil Service Examiner Secretary Julie Good.
Deputy Chief Jeff Young.
All right, with that, we'll call it to order. First action item we have is to approve the minutes from our March 30th meeting. I reviewed them. I don't have any changes, Ray?
no, I make a motion, we accept them as written.
I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye,
Aye. Motion carries. Look at that, Julie, huh?
Good job.
All right.
Thank you.
like we've done before.
Yes, we're getting to be old hats at this, right? All right, second item we had, action item was a staffing and recruiting update. I saw we had like 18 candidates now in the pipeline. Fantastic.
Yeah,
That is great. Go ahead, Julie, if you want to do your
I
side
was just
first.
going to mention that we added 3 new candidates to the list, removed 4, and then later this week we'll remove 3 more on the entry level list, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah, and to further on that, we had a command interview with a candidate today who was unfortunately disqualified. We moved 1 into polygraph yesterday. And then unfortunately, we lost another entry level earlier this week and our lateral candidate this week also. There were just some things in the background that caused us to decide that they were not the best fit for the Lake Stevens Police Department. So we're down to 1 lateral that we're hoping to start on about May 16th. So that's good news. And we're scheduling the command interviews as fast as we can. You know, one of the issues that we're running into, unfortunately, is just candidate availability. And then when we get to new business, I'll brief you on another item and see what we can do about it.
Yeah, well, I applaud you for, we're holding to standards, right? Even though it's tough in this time and you want body so bad, but I love that we're holding to the standards. So I applaud that. Good job.
So that 2 under lateral is now 1,
Correct.
okay. And did the vacant positions, that's 6, did that go up?
So we have 6 hard vacancies right now, and then we have a couple of more that are out on long-term disability. We have a couple of more that are out on, some sort of a medical disability, which, we're not anticipating that being such long-term stuff as in, months on end, but they're just not currently deployable in terms of being able to be put out on the road. So that takes us up to a total of 12 people down right now.
Wow. That's a lot.
When we are a 40-person sworn department, basically, yeah, that's a significant
That's a
jump.
huge hole. That's a whole shift plus.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, that's what we're here for. Keep moving through the goose here, right? So,
Oh, and one more thing, folks, too, with the record specialist, that person is in background. I'm sorry about that. I needed to tell you that too.
okay, great. Good. All right. Any other new business, Ray? I'm sorry, staffing update. Any other staffing updates?
Just one more, we attended the JBLM hiring event this week, I think that was. Gosh, a lot of other employers were there, all having the same struggles finding police officers, and had a couple of conversations with some folks that were considering a career in law enforcement, but I don't expect anything to come of that one, but we'll keep an eye on future events. And then there's another event later this month at WSU Everett
Mm,
campus that we'll be attending, and the police commander is going to be attending with us. So we'll try to get some more folks there, and then of course lots of recruiting coming up in the farmers market this year, and any other hiring events we can attend, we'll go to.
Nice. Yeah, military is a good pool to choose from, right? They know how to get out of bed, make their rack, and get moving. They understand hierarchy, right? Which is fantastic. So,
Yeah, and they tend not to have a lot of those background issues that are disqualifying the civilian candidates.
yeah.
Now, Julie, when you talk to these other departments, we have 17 plus on the intro level list. Is that quite a bit more than a lot of these other departments are working with, or is that about the same?
I think we have a few more, just looking at some of the neighboring agencies, but it depends on, Marysville's gonna have a lot more than some of our other
Yeah,
neighbors, but I think we have a few more than normal. Or
Yeah. County's
our
way down
competitors
too.
have. Yeah,
I know county's way down. I talked to one of the recruiters this morning over there. And they're struggling. They had a huge hiring boom over the last couple of years, and then it just kind of dried up in the last two. They've been struggling to keep up with it. They had to hire for the airport and all that stuff, right? It was a whole new division. It was crazy. Yeah. Well, all we can do is keep moving forward and keep trying to find people.
it's the goal.
Yeah. Trying to think where else we could recruit from. Like, I know that most of there's the federal police force, but I don't know. I know usually their pay depends on where they're stationed, right? So sometimes it's favorable to move over to a department versus staying with the federal entity, but I don't know. Just depends on geography. I think out here we could probably pick them off, but
Well, I'm open to any suggestions you have. If you run across an event or a source, anything that you hear of, please send it my way.
yeah,
Way, and we'll get on it.
we'll do.
Hey, Brian, one thing on that, I mean, that's a great suggestion of trying to recruit from federal police, especially those officers that are at the gate guards and stuff like that, that are, certified as police officers at the federal level. We would have to check with CJTC on that to make sure that they would be eligible for
Oh, yeah.
the CJTC certification. A couple of years ago, we had a couple of those come through the pipeline, and we had to, unfortunately, reject them because they were not able to be CJTC certified. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there have been any modifications for that yet, so that we can send them through the equivalency academy. But
Mhm.
that will be another thing that I add to my list of questions to ask the CJTC to see if we do have a person who is certified as a federal police officer, if we can move them to equip.
Yeah, even if you could hire them under a probationary range period where, you could have them working because they are trained, right? You could have them working under supervision, and then, hopefully by the time they end their probationary period after a year, you've already got them in the academy or lined up to go in quickly, because trying to figure out how to do that stopgap between the time we identify someone and then the wait for the academy, right, to get them trained up.
Yeah. So let me just give you a little bit more background on that. With the federal police officers, it's not so much the training, it's what they're trained on and the number of hours. So with that being said, we've had some of the tribal officers that have come over with various agencies, one including coming to ours. But for some reason, the Federal Police Officer Academy doesn't necessarily meet CJTC's requirements. So unlike our lateral from Colorado that we can immediately just swear in and they're a commissioned peace officer, because there's two things that we have to remember. So all of our officers are both commissioned and certified. So they're commissioned through the city to do police officer work, and they're certified through the state, which gives them their full power of authority and 24/7 power of arrest anywhere in the state effectively. So I guess the challenge with some of those federal guys is just getting them to that point. I'm wondering if there may be a way that we can approach the CJTC to figure out, okay, do they need a 2-week equiv academy, or do we add on a couple things and make it, say, a 5-week equiv academy? Because
Right.
even a 5-week equiv academy is much better than waiting for 10 months or a year
Yeah.
for an academy slot to open up for an entry level. I agree with you there. So there's still a lot of negotiation going on with CJTC. And again, the regional academy should be firing up in November. So we're hoping that will take some of the burden off.
Okay.
But we'll approach those things as much as we can.
Yeah, I would think that the CJTC should be looking for ways to restructure their guidance, if you will, right? Because we're obviously in unprecedented times, and what worked 30 years ago is not applicable today. Even the civil service commissions. This is how nerdy I am. I actually read up on the history of the civil service commissions, why they were put in place, right? And even there, you can see they've made some changes over the years, right? Like, kind of tweaks we've made internally here in the town and our commission. But I would think it's ripe for some revamp, I would say, in today's times, right? And I'm glad that they're going to let you do the regional academies. That's a huge boost and obviously direly needed, right? But
Yes.
there's got to be a way that they can make some accommodations. And I'm, true to point, not dumbing down the process, not making it, anybody can apply, right? But there's got to be some flexibility they can provide, because really the onus is on them for the bottleneck, right? You can find people, but then it's going to take who applies for a job and, hey, you're hired. We'll see you next January, like 12 months from now, right? No one expects that,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we do have Kevin Lanto here now, who's been, I guess, 3 weeks with us now.
Okay.
So he's helping out with a number of different things. So we do have a plan for him to get him spun up for when he does go to the academy. So
Right.
we're teaching him a lot of the different criminal law and some of the procedures, getting him spun up on his day one test and all these other things. So hopefully he'll be a pretty well-rounded individual by the time he gets to the academy. I mean, he'll have already been out doing some shooting with our range guys and having some familiarity. So if he has never fired a weapon before, he will before he goes to the academy.
Good. No, that's great. It actually gives them a head start, and I think some sort of hybrid system like that is the solve, right? We just got to figure out what the rules are. So
Mhm.
cool. Thank you. All right. If there's no more staffing and recruiting updates, we can move to old business. Is there any old business we need to discuss? No. So Julie, I know we voted in our last meeting to kind of shift power to you to make things move faster. Is that now, have we adopted that? We're good to go?
We did, that's the list from this week that's on the hiring update. That was one I signed on Monday.
Okay, good.
Hopefully the chief had a few extra days this week to get started having those candidates contacted.
We have reviewed their backgrounds and are working on scheduling the command interviews. Again, one of the things we're coming down to is the candidate availability. So we're working through that as best as we can. Most of our candidates right now have either scheduling command interviews or there were something pending. So one thing to note about that is that we are probably going to remove 2 more candidates after 1700 today, because we haven't heard from them. They've been unresponsive to our communications.
Yeah,
Do you have old business?
that's a red flag.
Do you have old business?
Well, I don't know, is this old business or new business?
I'm
That
not
was
sure.
old.
Well, Julie sent out, the civil service rules and regulations and the RCW chapter 4112 and the Lake Stevens Municipal Code in regard, because we had questions about the roles and responsibilities of the Civil Service Commission. And I just had a couple of things I wanted to bring up here is, and Julie and I talked offline about many of these issues and she was able to answer my questions, but it talks about the terms of the office shall be staggered, and so that we have 3 commissioners and it's a 6-year term, is it? Or how long is it? 6 years. So they want every 2 years, somebody comes off or we get a new one or whatever. And do you have our initiation dates or whatever?
I don't, the clerk's office does, and I will get those and email them out to everyone.
Okay,
hopefully today.
because we don't want 1 year, everybody, have to be replaced. And let's see, that was about the only question I had.
Hey, Julie, is there a provision if, let's say at the end of me and Ray get old and we can't do this anymore, or we want to keep hanging on, but we don't have the mental capacity to do it anymore? So we can, if at that 6 month or that 6-year period, is there a relief if you can't find other volunteers and Ray and I are still willing to hang on there? I'm just curious more than anything how that works.
Well, it's a 3-member commission, and we'd have to have at least 2 for a quorum.
Right.
So I don't think we just barely made it last time when we had a vacancy. I don't think there's a provision to conduct business if we don't have that quorum.
Okay.
do some more research in.
Well, are we allowed to get an alternate? So someone in the pipeline that already, shown an interest, that if one of us dropped off the face of the earth, that person could just step in
Sure,
and be sworn in?
sure. Yeah. Do you know of anyone?
No.
If you know of
but
anyone, let me
Can
know.
you advertise for someone?
What we've done in the past, or what the clerk's office has done in the past, is said we think there'll be a vacancy coming up in 6 months or something.
Yeah.
And ask for applications. They've done that in the past.
Well,
And
you
that's
know,
helpful because it's not,
we completed our academy. And I would think maybe some of those people that completed the police academy might be interested in this role.
okay, I'll mention
And
that.
so I would personally send something out to those folks.
Okay. That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, I plan on being here to haunt you for the full 6 years of the term, so no, we're good to go there. Unless they talk me into running for city council, which
You know when your term ends?
I can tell you because I put it on my LinkedIn profile, right? That's how geeky I am.
Julie will find out.
I think 4 years. I think I still got 4 years.
40 years?
40 years to go.
More years. Oh, okay.
4 more years. Yeah, something like that. Let me look here. God, man. I didn't realize I had so many things going on. Getting tired looking at it. Yeah, I've been doing the civil service for almost 2 years now. June will be 2 years.
And we appreciate and value your service.
Thanks, Chief. Great segue there.
You too, Ray.
I think at least 6 years.
At least, yeah.
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 Yeah, you're getting close, right?
Well, there was one time when we only had I was the only one. That was it. Because one guy got sick and another guy was like prosecuting attorney in Everett, and I think, and he had to drop out.
Oh,
I was it.
Yeah, it's easier to recruit a civil service commissioner than it is to recruit a police officer. So I think, we'll take that one on. We'll get that. I know a few people I can talk into it if we need to. So, is there any requirements, Julie, as far as like background, if they were like either former law enforcement, former corrections, does that preclude them from being a commissioner?
no, it doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay. Good. I had an argument with somebody the other night, so now I get to go win that beer over. That's going to be perfect. This is not jury duty, man. Come on. Geez. All right. I think that concludes old business. Is there any new business? Looks like we got legislative updates. And Chief, I really appreciate you forwarding that to us ahead of time. That's really handy. So thank you.
You bet. I do have one item of new business if I can give you that too.
Sure.
So we recently received communication from one of our candidates that was on the list that they are working with a couple of other agencies in the process, up to the point of psychological evaluation. So one of the things I wanted to call to the attention of the commission and see what we can do to work around is when we get, and Julie, this is a question for you too, when we get people added to the list, can we just immediately get the dump so we can start working on that? Because one of the problems that we have is that we try to make contact with the candidate, they're unresponsive, or they come up with a rationale if they're out of the country or they were doing something else. And we've had a couple of these types recently where they've said, I'm in process with another agency, I'll get back to you. So the proposal that I would like to bring forth is that we are able to work every candidate on our list so that when we get those that say I'm in a process with somebody else, we just move on. So we're not sitting there being tied to that ranked order list of, this person scored, using a random arbitrary number of, I scored a 94. But on that list, we can't get anybody down to come in for an interview, but we get a person who scored 75 or 71. I mean, obviously we want to maintain that standard and we want to respect, people's ability to participate in the process. But at the same time, how long is reasonable for us to wait for a candidate? And in some of these cases, we've wanted to work a candidate, but we could not get there because of the rules on the list, or the rules that would say we can only work this number of people and this number of people that are on the list, if that makes sense. So what I'd like to propose is we just start immediately working people and getting through them, at least to have a preliminary review of their background and personal history statement so we can assess whether or not they're going to be a viable candidate moving forward. There are some candidates that we review their information and we automatically determine that they're not going to be a viable candidate because of certain things in their background that are automatic disqualifiers to go against, the values and traditions that with all the new rules coming from CJTC, we're just not going to be able to work that candidate. So what I'd like to request the permission of the commission to do, along with the chief examiners, to work those candidates and get the most viable ones, regardless of where they fall on the list.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would think that, obviously we talk about speed of process all the time, but it seemed to me that if you are on a certified eligible list, yeah, of course, there's an order of achievement on test score, right? But, we've known that people with high scores get kicked out all the time for other reasons. So I think you should be able to move fluently up and down that list as time dictates, personally. Julie, does that violate any of the commission rules?
Well, yeah, so the rules, there's a rule of 5. So anytime there's a vacancy, the chief can consider any of the top 5 scoring candidates.
Okay,
And then there's an extra rule in there that allows for an additional candidate to be provided per vacancy. So now there's rule of 5, plus there's 6 vacancies. So they could look at the top 11 candidates on the list.
okay,
When the chief mentioned automatic disqualifiers, so the chief and I recently updated that, or the chief updated it and passed it on. And I used that to look through all of the candidates, all the information they provide to see if they meet any of those automatic disqualifiers. And if
Okay.
they do, I disqualify them immediately. So it sounds like maybe we should take a look at that list again, chief. If you're seeing candidates get through that have automatic disqualifiers, maybe we've got some potentials that need to be switched to automatics. So I can whittle those out right away. But I can do some research at the RCW and see if there's any ability to give the chief any more candidates.
yeah, because I would think as you're rolling through that list, even going by the rule of 5, and it brings you to 11, if we've got 18 on our list, if you're working them, it may come into where you're about to make a decision on a candidate that you've got to start worrying about where they are in that order, but to preliminarily go through background and doing the things you need to do to either get them to we definitely want to move forward or keep moving on with this candidate. I think we should have that flexibility built in. And I think that's what the chief's asking for as far as, that goes. It doesn't mean that they're going to ignore the top 5. It's just if they're not responsive, just go to the next one and keep working that list for all the different indicators we need to get through to get them to hire the hiring point. I think that's just smart personally. So I am okay with that. I don't know if we need to make a motion on that, Julie,
Well,
or,
I'll need to do some research first.
okay,
Yeah, so let me do some research, RCW, the municipal code, and our rules. I'll do research into those and then come back to you with that, maybe some proposed language if there is something we can do.
okay. That sounds good. And then also would you include looking at the current go, no-go reasons and add to that list to give more flexibility there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's another thing I was talking about too, is, maybe Julie and I can do a joint review of some of it, because that way there might be a potential disqualifier that we could just say, all right, we're just going to make a determination right now and not invite this particular candidate to move forward.
Right.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. If you're
that's-
able to do that, we can implement that right away.
Yeah, that's smart. And that's good. Anything makes go faster, right? And that's the key right now. Awesome.
And on top of that, like you said earlier, Brian, we're not sacrificing the standards for the bodies. That's kind of our intention there too, is to make sure that we are recruiting, or let me back up, we're attracting, recruiting, hiring, and retaining the top tier talent for our community.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. Excellent.
Okay, appreciate y'all considering it.
Yeah, you bet. Any other new business updates that we need to be aware of, Ray or Julie?
No,
I don't have any new business personally. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn our meeting.
I will second that motion. Meeting adjourned. Motion carries. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you
We
guys next
almost
time.
sound like we know what we're doing, Julie. This is pretty good.